All right, welcome back. Looking at the final section of Chapter 3, Biodiversity, Ecosystems, and something called Resilience. And so I'm going to talk about the three types of biodiversity, the benefits of being diverse in an ecosystem with living things, aka biodiversity, and then again some very important ecosystem benefits that we get from it. So types of biodiversity. Well, okay, so biodiversity is the variability of animals, plants, microorganisms, organisms we can't see with our eyes. And it does include ecosystem diversity, species diversity, as well as genetic diversity. So those are the three types. I'm going to talk about each one here on the next slide. So ecosystem diversity is the variety of habitats, so where an organism lives, communities, groups of species living together in an area, and the ecological processes in that biosphere. So species diversity, the number of different species in the biosphere or in a particular area. So how many different species live in an area. And then we also have genetic diversity, the total of all different forms of genes present in a particular species, basically looking at alleles, okay, variations that exist in a population of species. So they can be invisible, but they can be also responsible for all those variations, the different forms of those organisms that we see. And with genetic diversity, that is the raw material that enables organisms to adapt. And what I mean by raw material is kind of like what natural selection works on, okay? And you can change external factors because of that. So a picture just showing all the different types of biodiversity, different corals, different fish. One fish, here's a different fish, and here's a different fish. Here's another fish, and then we have this sea turtle. So lots of biodiversity just in this picture alone. Now the benefits of biodiversity, medicine. Okay, a lot of our medicine, comes from living things, and we have the different species that give us benefits. So like aspirin, antibiotics, plant compounds. Agricultural, when you have high biodiversity, you have a better disease resistance against other like fungi, or I guess I can only think of fungi in plants. Pest resistance as well. And then ecosystem resilience. So what does it mean to be resilient? It means that you can recover after a disturbance. Like how well do you recover after that disturbance? And if you recover very well, then you have a very high resilience. Okay, so resilient ecosystems do have some ability to adapt over time if there are changes in their surrounding. So like right now, global temperatures are increasing, and there are some organisms that are resilient. We're not seeing that higher temperature really affect them. Organisms that do get affected very quickly would have a low resilience, or maybe a low tolerance. I almost feel like those two terms go hand in hand together. Okay, so this diagram is it's a model, and the red population, if you take a look, seems to be better, or has a better tolerance for wet conditions. Okay, and the yellow species, it has a better tolerance for the dry weather, as you can see down here. And so ecosystems containing just one of those species change more dramatically than an ecosystem containing both species. Okay, so if you have a very diverse ecosystem with both species, you can see that it hardly really ever changes that much. But if you are dominated by one species, it can change very drastically. Here, changing very drastically. So that's what that model is trying to show. Okay, so the final thing is how human society depends on healthy ecosystems in a number of different ways. And you may not think about it, but the ecosystem does give us a lot of benefits. And so first one, obviously, food production. Okay. Nutrient cycling as well as soil structure. So looking at the carbon and nitrogen cycles that we discussed in previous chapters, soil fertility. Ecosystems purify water, wetlands. They help clean our water, clean the groundwater. A lot of carbon is stored in rocks and in the ocean. Regulating pests and pollinating crops. And then finally, buffering effects of extreme weather, um, buffering effects of extreme weather events. So it's just saying that coastal wetlands tend to protect against erosion and shield shorelines against storms, like hurricanes. Forests, they can protect mountainsides against erosion and landslides. So your book has a beautiful diagram, aka this, where it goes more into depth with purifying water. I just talked about wetlands, how it's reservoirs, and they filter and clean our groundwater. The buffering effects of weather, mangrove forests protect tropical shorelines from erosion by storm waves, and runoff. Pollination, bees, flies, butterflies pollinate our crops, fruit trees, vegetables, other beetles, bats, and hummingbirds do the same thing. Food production, so not just like crops, okay, but also animals that we eat. Nutrient cycling, removing CO2 from the atmosphere. Bacteria and fungi taking up nitrogen, turning it into organic compounds so we can make proteins. Um, Maintaining soil structure, microbes, and then finally regulating pests. So that does it for chapter 6. A little bit shorter section here. You guys do have a quiz, if I'm not mistaken, tomorrow. That does it for chapter 6. And for distance learning, you guys do have it's a chapter test, my bad. Chapter test on Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of the last week of school will be office hours for those that need help. I'm going to set up basically Zooms, and if anyone needs help with their homework, or yeah, I'll be there. Or if you just want to drop in and say hi, you sure are more than welcome